This is Chapter 13, Alternative Energy Sources, and this is Part 2. We discussed in class direct solar energy, and now on video we're going to discuss indirect solar energy. So looking at the first three, we have biomass, wind energy, and hydropower. In class, we talked about wind energy just in that it was an indirect source that we talked about in Chapter 5. And in one class we did discuss hydropower. That was a very good idea formulation. And then nobody talked about biomass. But I think as you read this, you can understand how biomass would be indirect. What creates plants? Sun, photosynthesis. Let you go ahead and copy this down just a little bit. Before we had fossil fuels, we had to have something to burn, to create heat, and to cook food. And burning plants or burning trees was the way that people were able to heat their homes. Not just build their homes, but heat their homes, and also cook with wood. So this is probably the oldest form of energy that we can think of. Now, what we do today is a little beyond taking and just burning wood and having fire. Right now, what we're working with is using things like soybeans, corn, sugarcane, and grass to create ethanol and methanol. And these can be burned like a gasoline. They can be provided to you with the same infrastructure as gasoline. And basically, it is a carbon neutral endeavor. Advantages of biomass and disadvantages. Reduces the dependence on fossil fuels. Uses waste material that can be utilized. We can use wood chips from trees that have been cut down. If we're going to use trees, we can put trees into a furnace and heat that. You heat those trees up, and that heat can turn a turbine and turn a motor and create electricity. We want to do it that way. It is, again, carbon neutral, because the carbon from the tree would go into the atmosphere anyway, so it doesn't increase carbon in the atmosphere. So, but you have to replant your trees. Disadvantage, you've got to have land in order to grow trees, water and fossil fuel energy as an input, because you've got tractors and maintaining that. What can this cause? Deforestation. Deforestation then causes desertification or soil erosion, and then desertification. Let me go back a minute. Let me talk a little bit more about biomass. Sorry, I thought I had another slide in here. I didn't preview this before I started talking. But I want to talk a little bit more about the alternative fuels that we can make, the ethanol and methanol, because I kind of cut that off because I thought I had another slide. Anyway, the ethanol and methanol is utilized from plant material that can be replanted every year. The thing with that, and it works very well, they're using soybeans and, they're using sugarcane down in Brazil and making ethanol. Sugarcane, it's a good thing to use. They get about it's a 9-to-1 ratio. You have an input of energy, no matter what that input is, and you get 9 units of energy out. So with sugarcane, that's a good return. There's also grass that is used, and it's farmed in Tennessee, and that has a very good input-output ratio as well. We've used corn in the United States primarily because we grow a lot of corn, and corn prices soared when we were using it, but the input-output for fuel in versus fuel out is about a 1-to-1. So you're really not getting anywhere. You're using fossil fuels to get it made, and you're not creating more energy with the product. So it's expensive if you look at it that way to do that, and you're really not, there's not a big bang for your buck there. So not one of our better maneuvers economically or environmentally for the planet in the United States. So the way to go is sugarcane. It's kind of handy. We grow sugar down here. However, the market price for sugar here, just going to the grocery store so we can make cookies, is not worth turning this into a biofuel, especially with natural gas and fracking of oil shale. Another one is wind energy, and we talked about this. This is showing the working apparatus of the turbine here, and so you have your big blades. And the thing about these, when they first came out, they couldn't change direction and they couldn't tilt them. Now these are much more efficient because they can move the heads so they can catch the wind if the wind changes direction. As you know here, wind can come from different directions. Sometimes we get wind moving things from the west, and sometimes it moves it from the east. And so that makes these more economical. They're still expensive to build, and there's maintenance in this. There's also, in that drive shaft, in the inside of that, there is platinum. And platinum is a precious metal that is very expensive. That makes those go. So we talked, I know in one class we talked about this and I can't remember, but we talked about how this can be detriment to migratory birds. We talked about them possibly looking at wind energy out in Belle Glade, but it was in a migratory bird pattern, so that was a drawback to wind energy. There are a few environmental problems, and thus they kill the birds and bats. And there's really no waste. It's very clean. It costs, and a lot of people don't think they're very pretty, and I'm probably one of them, those people that don't think they're very pretty. However, these could be an alternative fuel source. The wind blows at night, so maybe coupled with using solar, this is a good method. Now, the wind doesn't always blow. So there again, when the wind doesn't blow, or it blows just a little bit, you're not getting as much energy from this. So if you use this exclusively, you would still have to go to a grid and have to have some kind of conventional energy. Our third one is hydropower. And basically hydropower is created, it's water, and it's created by building dams. This is the most efficient energy, 90% efficiency, versus what we say about 10% efficiency, or 15% efficiency with solar. It's the most widely used of all the solar powers. 19% of world's energy comes from hydropower. Traditional hydropower, basically you have a dam on a river and you dam the river up. Inside the dam you will have massive turbines. And those massive turbines are connected to massive motors, which create a lot of electricity. Now, a dam cannot be built everywhere. Florida, not suitable for damming rivers. We do not have the elevations. You have to dam a river kind of in an area that's in a gorge or in an area that has tall walls. So it works better out west where that is applicable. Now there are some, you've got dams in Tennessee, many dams that hold water back, but there again it's hilly and you have the elevations to do it and to store enough water deep enough to have enough force to turn these turbines. You've got to have a lot of pressure behind this to make it work. Dams are very ecologically just devastating. They tear up an ecosystem. They create many ecosystem problems. So many to the point that in the United States you cannot build a dam anymore. And many of the dams are being taken out. Because if you think about it, you think about a river flowing and you put a dam on it, and that moving water now that was maybe 18 inches deep, maybe 2 feet deep, now it's 40 or 50 feet deep. It changes the flow of the water. All of the terrestrial land behind that dam has been flooded, so there's no ecosystem there. And it changes the habitat for the aquatic organisms as well. And we'll talk more about how damming hurts the environment later on as we go. If we click on this, I'm going to try it. Oh, it worked. Okay. And you can see, I just wanted to show you these. These are all the dams in the West. And there are just multitudes of dams. And look at this Northwest area, just littered with dams on these rivers. So it's really forever changed the landscape of this whole area in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. Huge issues. Some of the issues that we have with the dams in this area, the salmon fish that live out in the Pacific, they can't get back to their breeding grounds. And because they come in when they're going to spawn and go back to where they were born, and they spawn. And so it makes it harder for them to get through the dams, and then the little fry that come the other way once they're hatched, trying to get through the dams, is another issue. Those big turbines slice them up and give you sushi, salmon sushi, in the water. Not exactly where you want it. If the little guys don't make it out into the ocean, then they're not going to grow up. And it's more of an issue for them getting there. So we spend literally billions of dollars a year to take care of this problem. And those dams, basically what we do, we've built ladders for the fish to climb. We've diverted water so that they can go around. We've created elevators in the dam. We have put them on barges to get them around. Another thing that hurts the fish, and especially the little guys, is that the water coming out of the turbines, as you can imagine, you're getting a lot of friction there. So it heats the water up, and these fish are cold water fish, and that really hurts them because it makes them too hot. So a lot of these dams now have to have chillers on them. So, and then these are just reasons to build the dam, which are good reasons: electrical power, irrigation water. It it not only provides electricity, but out west where it doesn't rain very often and they rely on snowmelt for their drinking water source, it guarantees them a source of water for the entire year. It controls floods, because when you have that big snowmelt in the spring, if you've got a reservoir to put the water in and you let it out slowly, you don't have an area that's going to flood. So that helps. Of course, it creates areas for recreation and swimming and boating and fun to be had. It says commercial fishing. It doesn't really create a commercial fishing, so to speak, unless you're going to lake fish. And then it creates more habitat for a lake fish. It's a different species of fish that's going to be in the lake than would be in the river. What does it do? It absolutely disrupts ecology, upstream and downstream. Upstream, you're talking total devastation in terrestrial. Downstream, basically what happens is you do not get a nice flow of water that lays down sediments. So sediments are, they get stopped behind the dam, they drop into the bottom of the lake. The sediments actually, when they pool in different areas, cause the stream to be more shallow. It creates sandbars. It creates basically what my brother-in-law calls a hidey hole for the fish, an area where the fish are protected. They can lay eggs and they can rest. And those are good if you're a fisherman, like my brother-in-law. Those are good places to catch fish as well. So that all stops, and those areas go away. We talked a little bit about fish migration and then displacement of people. The largest dam was opened up in China called Three Gorges Dam, and I believe that was in your book to read. And Three Gorges Dam displaced millions of people, and the government of China didn't do anything about it. They said, you better get out of the way or you're going to get water all over you. So they had to relocate towns, and the government did not help with the cost of that. Catastrophic failure, if the dam busts, if it breaks, all that water's coming down immediately. Then you have a mega flood. So there will be loss of life. Disease, when you slow that water down, it heats up. There's more potential for mosquitoes, flies, disease-carrying microbes to increase. So, all those things. I'm going to stop there. We'll talk about Three Gorges in class. So that is the end of part 2.